It would be another autumn, winter approaching. The farmer would be out harvesting. His wife would be hauling the corn to the crib, unloading it, taking the wagon back to the field for another load. As she waited at the end of the field for the corn picker to come around with a full load, she'd bend to pick up the corn that had dropped on the headland. The corn picker loses some ears when it is turned around. One of those chilly autumn days, it would be a Saturday afternoon, the farmer's wife was out there again at the end of the field, waiting for another load of corn, bending to pick up ears that had dropped. Into the field would drive the landlord, the important man with his important Cadillac. The young wife would think, this is as good a time as any to ask the very important man for storm windows for the second floor of the farmhouse. In winter, frost came into the corner of the ceiling of the stair, up 2 or 3 inches thick in there. Something had to be done about it. So she would ask for storm windows, the young wife would. The important man would say, no, we can't buy you storm windows. We have 40-some rental houses and we couldn't possibly afford storm windows. So the farm wife would bend and pick up an ear of corn. You can see her. It's almost like slow motion. She throws the ear into her empty wagon, just as she had been doing all day, just as she had done often, but she throws it hard. When the ear of corn hits the far side of the wagon, nearly all the kernels explode off of it. She threw that hard, and the corn was that dry. If you can't get us storm windows, the farm wife says to the very important man, you can bet that's the last damn ear of corn I'm picking up for you. The young farmer, when he heard about this exchange, would be furious. He would say, Mother, it's just things like this that's going to cause us to have to move. That would be a Saturday afternoon. On Monday morning, even before the sun was up, 5:30 a.m., the phone rings in the drafty old farmhouse. The young wife answers. Ah, says the important man on the end. I got the boss. I wanted to talk to you. Charles and I were visiting yesterday. Charles was his brother and partner in the business. Charles and I were visiting yesterday, and we thought it would be a good idea if you had the fellow at the lumber yard in Curlew come out and measure the house for storm windows. You want to have him put storm windows on the first floor, too. I was asked earlier if I would be talking about themes in my work and that sort of thing, and I'm not really one to think too much about those things, but I will say to start, I'd have nothing to write about if I couldn't read upside down, if I didn't eavesdrop shamelessly, and I didn't hear voices. Jack Spicer says poets are radios, and they dial in and pick up whatever is coming in on the frequency. So I sort of believe that's true too. In terms of theme, I think perhaps there are 4 themes: love, loss, praise, and thanksgiving are probably the main ones. And speaking of hearing voices, this is actually a poem taken from the letters of my wife's great-great-great-grandfather who fought in the Civil War. He died while serving not of war wounds, but of what they called dropsy in those days, which was congestive heart failure. I call it his Robert Creeley poem. It's a tall, skinny one. This is a 1860 guy talking now. I find the more a man has here, the worse it is, the more he has to pack. It is useless for us to make ourselves the mules. And one of the other voices is an Iowa farmer. Not my dad, I don't think. This is called The Neighbor Hailed Out. He doesn't live that far down the road the way we measure. He's a neighbor, and now his crops are wiped out by hail. What could I say standing with him in the middle of a shredded field? Only if he'd lost his wife or one of his sons could he have been paler. They were his, those fields, planted in long straight rows, kept clean of weeds brought along. When he spoke, or tried to, his only voice was a cough repeating, "Gone, all my work done in." The poet's job, too, is to pay attention. This is a very short little essay from the idea of the local called Counting Blessings. "Good morning," he says, the fellow who works at the lumber yard. "We are at the gas station filling our vehicles." "Good morning," I say. "How are you?" "Cold," he says. "Yeah," I say, "but it could be worse." "Yeah," he says, "think of all those people, the tornadoes, the storms. We're pretty lucky." "Yeah," I say. At age 52, I taught myself to swim so I could be certified to scuba dive. To be certified to scuba dive, you have to swim 200 yards and tread water for 10 minutes before you get your license. So I had to teach myself to do that. And then went scuba diving in Cozumel, off of Cozumel.
Yes. Cozumel gets applause.
For scuba diving.
Yeah.
Scuba diving may be as close as humankind will come to the sensation of bird flight, to the climb and roll and hoot of it. We are mostly water. Underwater, the wetness seems an extension of us. Or are we an extension of the water? Is it the dancer or the dance? Why, oh why, did we ever come out of the sea? Why did we ever choose to become clumsy land beasts when water is our essence and feels so much like home? And the colors underwater, the psychedelic aura of everything, the shine and color and shake. Well below the surface, a large fish swims past, close to me, very close. It looks as if it's been drawn and colored by a small child. It looks like a cartoon of a fish come to life. I laugh, and laughing I nearly lose the regulator from my mouth. Then we're at Palancar Reef, the outer wall at the edge of open ocean. We are swimming at 55 feet amongst the coral heads there. Then the wall of the reef falls away and we fall into a blue ocean, into an infinite midnight blueness of outer space, receding forever. There are little fishes winking on and off like stars twinkling. The Yucatan Channel is 2,600 feet deep. It is a great blue abyss, and looking into it takes my breath away. I am not seeing God, but it's like seeing God. Looking into the abyss, I have to remind myself to breathe. We cannot speak the name of God, and now I know why. I have to remind myself again, breathe. I have never been so alive. Another one of those voices I hear. Ben Zen is a Oriental monk walking around modern day America saying things like this. Desire destroys a man twice. Once in the wanting, then again in the not letting go. I push the mountain, Ben says, and push the mountain, and still the mountain pushes back. You can't always go to the cave of 1,000 Buddhas, Ben says, and you can never come back the same. You are welcome, the holy man said, to all the wood I have. I have no fish either. If the wise man is surprised, Ben says, express surprise yourself. Ben misquotes a friend and finds this. Sometimes poets get a good line, and sometimes you can't tell the difference. Appalachia, summer 1968. Someone asked a poet after reading if that was a real poem or did he just make it up. This is a real poem. He's thin as a rail. He's wearing denim overalls, no shirt. I say, how come you're so skinny? He says, ain't no fat people in the mountains. He's chewing a plug of tobacco. Our smart aleck from New York asks, how old are you? The mountain kid says, 14. New York says, then give me a chaw of that, and he stuffs a wad in his mouth. Later he's puking his guts out around the corner of the house. Mountain kid just smiles. He looks off into the distance, speaks his wisdom. He's supposed to spit the juice out. I had a conversation, so to speak, with our very own Louis Niedeker, and these are a couple of excerpts from that exchange called That Woman. She is not shadow, that woman. She is not the mist. She is vapor at the blue edge of flame. And then this and the next are in her own voice, I think. Your fierce darkness does not offend the light. Give back and take and let yourself be lifted. Scrape at solitude as with a spatula, taking the last of the cream from the bowl. She is the motion she makes, that woman, the gesture, the sound. She is the silence on holy ground. All this shake of day and night, that woman says, all the lay of shade and light, all the bounding silence, the green streak of earth, yes, the water, yes, the sky, all of everything today, amen. And then a few new things. Newer things. These will be in a collection called 70 at 70. At the end of the month I turned 70 and I want a book to commemorate the occasion with 70 poems in it. So this would be the prologue. You may think I pray. You may think I say, Lord, and mean your God. Praise is my only prayer to that God who breathes the earth, who lets us breathe it too. For some reason I seem to get up in the morning. Dawn. Out of the eye of a flower, the morning sun. Of birds. If it is of birds, there must be feathers all the way through. There must be leaves and wind. On the wind there must be that certain smell of spring. and far off, someone must be singing. Cleaners of the world. Magpies and crows and vultures, eaters of the dead, cleaners of the world, take us across the river. Take us out of darkness into the sudden light, you hope birds, you flyers, you sanctifiers. When you go outside in the dark tonight and see those things streaking across the sky, they're called Perseids. I stand at the edge of night. Now the stars are falling all through the darkness, more than we can count. Shower of stars, as if the universe is coming undone. It is and it is not. These are the Perseids. The surprise of them is more than wind in the darkness, more than sky marking out the end of times. This is the world poking our eyes with wonder, taking our breath, taking our last breath, and not giving it back. Only the few mysteries I am drawn to, the few which take my breath away. The way the morning light lays on the world, the way the wind comes on and leaves, the way darkness carves out the evening, the places a good woman takes you. Somewhere silence, somewhere the call of a red tail, somewhere the house closing up for the night, somewhere the stars, oh God, the stars. Coyotes tonight. Coyotes tonight under a sickle moon. The long song of midwinter tells of hunger, asks where food might be found. The calls hang like loneliness around us. Only the loon's call would be sadder could we hear loons tonight. We can't. Instead, we hear distance in the distance, howling into the darkness. The coyotes working their way away. And this would be the epilogue of the 70 poems. The blue sky darkening now, the birds settling, the wind letting down. As the shadows lengthen, I wonder at the world, and in this failing light begin to understand the loneliness of God. Thank you.